What is it like being a Jamaican living in Nicaragua? Hi, I'm Xavier Murphy, the founder of Jamaicans.com, and today in Jamaicans to the World, I speak to Elaine Douglas Harrison, a Jamaican who has lived in Nicaragua. Hi, Elaine, how are you?
Hi, Xavier. I'm just fine. Thank you.
Good, good, good. So let's start out. Which part of Jamaica are you from?
Well, I'm from Riches, Clarendon, which is my big town is Spaldings, which is on the border of Clarendon and Manchester.
So, I mean, the Clarendonians and Clarendonites, as some may say, y'all are adventurers, man. Big adventurers.
Well, all Jamaicans are adventurers. I've learned that from your series. We live everywhere and anywhere.
That's true. That's true. So, do you know Tweetside?
I know off Tweed side because my father used to talk about somebody who lived there. I forget who
Right.
now, but my father was like in politics. I don't know if it was Mr. Malcolm, somebody with Tweed side, but I never went there.
Okay. Well, Tweetside is where my mom's family is from.
Is it beyond Sanganetti?
I don't know Saganetti, but I
Sanganetti.
know Spalding was one of the big towns that we would talk about it. Instead of going to get, let's say something you couldn't get in town. Them say, okay, I'm going to Spalding.
Yes, Spaldings was our big town. That's right. And Mandeville,
So
no, big Spaldings, then Christiana, then Mandeville, the big town. Yeah,
exactly. So Spalding is where they always default to if they're going to get something that they couldn't get in town.
right. Sure.
So which school in Jamaica are you representing?
The Servite Convent of the Assumption in Brownstone. I was a boarder.
Okay. Wow. That must have been quite an experience.
It was delightful, and we're not big on the old girls thing because our school closed and the building got taken over. It is now the Brownstone Community College.
Is there a group of you that still kind of keep in touch as borders?
We're all still in love with each other, even if we don't see each other for years and years. We have a Facebook page and we get in touch like that.
Awesome. Is there a teacher that you remember from school that inspired you?
A very, very special teacher, Sister Mary Christine OSM. Sister Christine was strict. We all remember her. We all have stories about her, but she was delightful. And because of her, I went to the university. If it wasn't for Sister Christine, I would not be who I am today. I love her dearly. She lived to almost 100. She just passed
Awesome.
on. Yes.
So tell us your story. How did you end up living in Nicaragua? And let me tell you, folks, you lived in Nicaragua some years ago, and so tell us how you ended up in Nicaragua.
Well, I am what I call an unintentional immigrant. I never planned to leave Jamaica, ever, ever. Anyway, I did. In 1978, I came to the States. And then from there, I started working in the international organizations. So when I worked in the UN, that's how I ended up in Nicaragua as, I think it was assistant resident representative, something like that. But that's how I ended up in Nicaragua in the 1994, I think it was, yes. And I lived there for 3 years, and I consider myself half Nicaraguan. I went back in 2015 to visit.
So I think the Nicaraguan said Nica.
I call myself Media Nica. I teach Spanish. Media Nica, that's me, half Nicaraguan.
So did you know Spanish? You teach Spanish. So did you know Spanish before you actually got to Nicaragua?
At the Servite Convent, you were not considered educated if you didn't have a language. So I did Latin, French, and Spanish, and my first degree from UWI is in French and Spanish. Yes,
Wow. Wow. So you just blended right in when you got there.
that's right.
So tell us a little bit about the people in Nicaragua. What are the people like?
The people are delightful. And of all the places I've been, and I've been to quite a few places, the Nicaraguans understand the word weekend. When the weekend comes, they go to the beach, they party, they dance on a Friday night. The whole family is on the dance floor, the grandma, the babies, everybody. They can party. They understand about working during the week and playing on the weekend. And they are very loving. I had a very, very good experience. I still have good friends there. In fact, when you go to visit, I have a friend I'll send you to.
So, I know in South America, I think they have what they call Little Friday, right? Thursday is called Little Friday. I don't know if it stretches out to Nicaragua on the weekend or so on, or it's just South America.
They just love to party and they know about the weekend. They just take off and do wonderful things on the weekends.
So there's a famous blue fields. Have you been to the famous blue fields? Because I hear that is basically where the Jamaican descendants and kind of Jamaican like there.
Well, the Caribbean coast, La Costa Caribeña, the Caribbean coast of Central America is really, partly Jamaican because as the crow flies, Nicaragua is right across from Jamaica. But what happened is that the Moravian church sent missionaries to Nicaragua to open churches and build schools. Moravians have schools and churches in the same yard. That's what we did in Riches. And so they went over to Nicaragua, which is why we have the, descendants of Jamaicans. But I'll tell you a story. When I first got to Nicaragua, and I took my little son. He was, what was he? He was a little boy, and he heard all the Spanish around him. And I heard about this island before I heard about Bluefields. I heard about Corn Island, and they said you have to go to Corn Island because Jamaicans are over there. I said, Jamaicans, where is this Corn Island? Anyway, we had to fly from Managua to Corn Island. So as we got, but a little dingy airport, But as we got there, my son, as we came off, and the guy came to get the luggage, and my son says, "Mommy, he's speaking Jamaican." And so we stayed at a hotel, and the first thing that happened, you always ask what happens when they hear you're Jamaican, right? Well, this was something unexpected. We were in the dining room, and the server lady says to me, my boyfriend is Jamaican. I said, really? She said, I'm going to call him, let him come and see you. And so sure enough, she did. And he came down to see us, and he came from the same part of Jamaica as me. I was so shocked. I was so shocked. And he is a character. I saw him again in 2015. I don't remember his name off the cuff right now. But if you go to Corn Island and you ask for the Jamaican guy who was in charge of the fisheries, because he's a big guy, he told me he ran away from Jamaica because he was an old criminal, but he ended up in Nicaragua, head of the fisheries department. Everybody knew him in Corn Island.
Wow.
It was really good. 2015, found him again, and went back and looked for him. Nice.
Wow. Wow. So in terms of, keeping their heritage culture alive on Corn Island, is it like strong? Is it food?
Corn Island is little, but it's right off the coast from Bluefields. So in Bluefields, now I've been to Bluefields because I've actually interviewed people in Bluefields about, their heritage and so on. And they do, for example, Palo de Mayo is their big celebration, Maypole, at in I think Easter time or somewhere there. And we had Maypole in Jamaica as well.
Right,
And
right.
Jamaican music is just everywhere. I mean, because of that, there was a place in Nicaragua, in Managua now, because we had to fly from Managua to the Bluefields is on the East Coast. There was a club called Mansión del Reggae Mansion, to which my daughters and I went every weekend, and we locked it down every night. It was wonderful. It was so special, you can't imagine. All the Jamaican music, all the soca, all the reggae, all the music you could find. It was
Wow.
we had our dancing partners. It was wonderful.
So you're teaching them Jamaican dancing.
Well, they were good because they keep up, because they get Jamaican radio, Jamaican TV, and they keep their links because there's a big fishing industry where they go across with the lobster and shrimp, big industry. So they keep in touch with Jamaica all the time from Bluefields, and they're very proud of their heritage. And they speak, of course, Spanish and English.
Nice, nice.
And
So,
patois, and patois,
and
and Jamaican, and Jamaican.
and Jamaican.
Let's call it the right word.
Exactly, exactly. So, food. Tell me about Nicaraguan food. I love the Nicaraguan steak. I can tell you that. I'm just gonna admit it. Okay. My sister, one of my sister-in-law is Nicaraguan, and I always ask her, she give me the recipe and so on. But
What?
but forget about me. Tell me about the food there, and if you could tell me if there's one thing you say, if you go to Nicaragua, you have to try this.
Well, no, if you go to Nicaragua, eat all the food. The only thing I did not like was mondongo, which is tripe. And the only tripe I have ever enjoyed is the sausage my mother used to make. So anything else in Nicaragua, eat it all. The food was delicious. The food is natural. The food is just great. There's so much. There is the one bao, which is the one with the beef and the cassava. They do quite a bit with cassava. Not like how we do our cassava, but they cook the cassava. Like they put it in stews and they boil it. So there's bao. That was one. Um, anything they give you, anything at all. And queso frito. Queso frito, I used to like. I didn't know you could fry cheese until I went to Nicaragua. And even here now in America, I buy this, it's a special cheese, queso frito, that you can fry. And I like it with rice and peas. And
Oh
rice and
wow.
peas they call gallo pinto. And
Mm,
I looked it up, it says gallo pinto. Gallo is a rooster. And pinto means it's spotted, right? Like the peas are the spots and the white rice is the rooster. It's gallo pinto. But I love queso frito with my gallo pinto, but I ate everything and my weight was normal and beautiful. I felt lovely in Nicaragua. I would live there again in a minute.
nice, nice, nice. So when you tell the Nicaraguans that I'm Jamaican, what was the typical response and the questions you would get?
Well, anytime I say I'm Jamaican in these places, they look at my color and my eyes and they get a little bit, put off a little bit. But I'll say we have all kinds of colors in Jamaica. But in Nicaragua, they were very happy to hear I was Jamaican because it meant the link with the Caribbean coast. Immediately, they told me about Bluefields. They said, oh, you must go to Bluefields because you see a lot of people over there and so on. So they were quite happy I was Jamaican. There was no problem, nothing special.
All right. No, in terms of traditions and the culture there in Nicaragua, was there anything, you told me the weekends they party hard, they enjoy their weekends, but was there anything else from a cultural perspective that you observed that you found, it could be a custom that you found very interesting?
Well, almost every weekend there was a parade somewhere in honor of a feast, a Catholic, a Catholic saint. And so one I remember very well is August. August, they have the Ipicos, where they have like a parade of horses in a particular place in Nicaragua. They have that. And then they have another thing in August. Again, it's from August the 1st to the 10th. It's like their big national feast day because it's Managua's Saint Domingo. So anyway, they bring a little thing of the saint, a little statue, and they move it from one church to the cathedral, I think it is. They move it on the 1st to a different church, and on the 10th, they move it back. So there's a procession on the 1st with this little saint through the street. And I like that because I used to be Catholic. So I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Okay. All right. A strong tradition there, and possibly did they during the Christmas season, and do they do the Three Kings parade and that type of thing
Well,
too?
Christmas is important for partying, for going to the beach, especially too. But what was interesting about Christmas, since you mentioned it, is we were invited out to eat at somebody's house, and it was after midnight that we had the food. No, it wouldn't work nowadays because I don't eat so late at night anymore. But it was after midnight. So that was something. But Christmas is not so important as Holy Week, Semana Santa. No, Semana Santa is very important because most people have the whole week off for Easter. And that's when you go to the beach too, and you have a special soup called, I think, sopa de queso, that they only make soup with cheese that they only make at that time. And there's just general festivity at Easter time. The weather, by the way, is perfect all year round. The weather is nice
Wow.
all the time.
Wow.
Rain falls. It's interesting because when the rain falls, I don't think they have a true, maybe they do have a dry and rainy season. I'm not quite sure. But the UN office was built in a way that the center was open. It was like a square, the building, and then in the middle was wide open. So when the rain would fall, it would steam off you'd see the steam coming up off the ground because it was hot. And I would go out on the balcony and watch. I like that. That was nice.
So, what was the cost of living like when you lived there?
It was very good. It was very good. I don't know how it is now, and I hear the politics mightn't be so great at this time, but when I was there, it was very good. Everything was reasonable. In fact, I tried to run a little guest house at one point, and I had a cook and helpers and so on, and it was feasible. It was reasonable then. But I must say that when I went, it was right after the Nicaraguan civil unrest and war and troubles that they had. It was after that. So,
Okay.
in fact, the only reason I really didn't stay was because the banks didn't have any loans, any personal loans at all. And so when I fixed up the guest house, and I had it kind of running on the side business, and because I was with the UN for 1 year and then I left and went back to teaching. I hadn't taught in 25 years, and I went back to teaching in Nicaragua in the American school. And so when the guy I was renting the house from wanted it back, but he would have sold it to me at almost nothing. I think he went down to like $90,000, and it had 5 bedrooms. It had almost 2 acres of land. It would have been great, but I
Wow.
didn't have cash, and the banks didn't give loans, hadn't started giving loans. So
Oh, wow.
my daughters were with me, and when they wanted to come back stateside, I just came back as well. But I would have easily stayed there. True, true.
Wow. Wow. So, how was the experience for your daughters and your kids there living in Nicaragua?
Well, I have 4 children, and I had 3 with me. The fourth one was in college in Massachusetts, and he came down one Christmas. And I'll tell you something, he was kind of still in his getting over teenage. He had pimples on his face. He left Nicaragua. He's not had a pimple since. I don't know if it was the water. I don't know if it was the good food. I don't know what it was. But that Christmas, he came down and got over his acne completely. Anyway, it was just such a good place. My children remember it with so much love. It's like 3 of the best years in their lives, really. My
Wow.
little son still has friends. In fact, my son who was, what was he? Was he 7? He was little. And he, maybe from 7 to 10, he still has friends that he met at the American Nicaraguan School, ANS, who he visited in Thailand and some other place just this last summer. They have stayed in touch. And that's really
Wow.
special. Yes.
That is special.
And
Quite
then
a
my
connection.
daughters remember it as just, I mean, we partied so much. They remember it as just a great, I mean, Friday night to Sunday night. It was lovely. And you see, we felt safe. That was the other thing. In the neighborhood where we were, the neighborhood watch was real. There was a little guy sitting on a stool in the street, in the adjoining street. And when we would drive by, me and my girls, and we would wave to him and say, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" And he would say, "Oh, muy bien, gracias, and cuídate, take care." And it was lovely.
Oh, I saw like some great memories. Great
Reminded
memories.
me of my Maritone days. Very similar.
So tell us a little bit now about places that we must see if we visit Nicaragua.
The
Give me at
first,
least 2 places you'd say.
first place to go, of course, if you're in Managua, is the volcano. You have to go to the Volcan Masaya. But the last time in 2015, when I went back and took my grandsons, that day it was I guess the sulfur in the air, it was so dense, the air, that we could hardly breathe. So I think I
Mm.
remember staying in the car, and the boys still went out and had a little look, but the air was thick. It wasn't like when you would go and the air is clear, but you go on a day when the air is clear and you can go closer to the volcano if that's what turned you on. And that's one place to see. And then you could leave Managua and go to Granada, and to Lake Nicaragua. There are lakes. There's Lake Managua and there's Lake Nicaragua. Lake Nicaragua has, I think, 400 islands, lots of little islands. And so you get into a boat and you go around the little islands. That's fun to do too. We did that as well. And of course, after teaching in the daytime, we used to go and watch the sunset on the beach in the evening.
Wow, nice, nice. And Blue Fields, how far you said you had to fly out to
Have to
Blue Fields?
fly. It's not a long flight. Like I think maybe an hour. And
Okay.
when I went, there were two ways to fly to Bluefields. There was one where you had only one pilot, and there was one where you had two pilots. And the one with two pilots was a little bit more expensive. So, I thought about it and I said, but no, I don't like the idea of one pilot. So I think I went once with one pilot, and ever since then I go with two pilots. But now the planes are bigger. When I went in 2015, the plane probably held about maybe 20, 25, maybe 30 of us. It was bigger. So I felt a little bit more secure in the air. But yes, you do have to fly. Mhm.
So, you knew Spanish.
Yes.
The place, you eat the food. Was there any adjustments that you would say you had to make when you moved there?
No, not really. Not really.
Okay.
Because, it felt like, I don't know, it felt so safe and I felt at home right away. Right away. Interesting. When I first got there, it was just me and my son because my daughters hadn't joined me yet. And we were living on this street. And, at that time, there were no street signs, none at all. So when you say you're going somewhere, they'll tell you, where is such a place? They'll say, up the road where the tree used to be, next to where the old theater used to be, 2 blocks to the right and a block to the left. And so we got used to those instructions. It was so funny. That was the only thing that took some getting used to because you didn't want to get lost. But funny, we just thought it was the funniest thing.
That's like the Jamaican, you see the guango tree up at the right of the tree right there, son, then go a little bit up the hill.
That's
And
right.
a man sit down at the corner and
Yeah. And Jamaican little bit is always not little bit. Holy for walking.
so what advice would you give, right? And you have lived a couple places, but what advice would you give to anybody that's thinking of either moving to a Nicaragua or just moving somewhere else because you have the experience there?
Well, your mind has got to be open. Your mind has got to be wide, wide open. And I tell you that in Nicaragua, there wasn't any big thing. But I'll tell you, when I lived in Cambodia for a year, the first shock was that there was no dining table. And when it was time to eat, they rolled out a mat and we sat on the floor. So if you're going to travel and live in other people's places, your mind has got to be open, really open. And you don't go ready to criticize or to compare. You just go to experience. Your mind is open and you go to experience and you have a very good time. You love the people and they love you right back. That's my experience anyway.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Elaine, I appreciate you spending some time telling us about your experience in Nicaragua. Here's a question. You get off the plane in Jamaica, you get out the airport. What is that one thing that you are doing? Whether it be, I'm going to have to go this place, and some people say dip in the water. Some people say I got to get this food or I got to make this visit. What is that for you?
Before I get to Jamaica, I have lots of delightful cousins who live there. I make sure that my sugar cane is in the fridge waiting for me. I miss sugar cane in a way I cannot explain. Sugar cane settles my stomach, makes me happy. And so my cousins usually have 2 bags or 3 bags in the fridge waiting for me. And I love that.
So here's how I typically end, and you may have to dig back into the database for this one. So your Nicaraguan friends, how do they say informally goodbye?
Well, you have two choices. You can say, que le vaya bien. And that's so fast that sometimes at the beginning I didn't quite catch it. Que le vaya bien. And it really means, like how we say God go with you. It doesn't say Dios for God, but it kind of says, I hope everything goes well for you. Que le vaya bien. And they say it pretty fast.
Que,
Que le vaya bien.
que le vaya bien.
Que le vaya bien. Yes.
Que le vaya bien.
Que
And
le
what's
vaya.
the second way?
And the second way, hasta la próxima. And I really found myself I still use it a lot. It means until next time. And I realized it was in Nicaragua I started using that. Hasta la próxima. See you next time. Until next time.
So I'm gonna ask this kind of question because you do teach Spanish.
I do.
And you still continue to teach Spanish. Is it only unique to Nicaragua where you hear
Que le vaya bien.
no, both terms? Is it unique?
No, it's Latin American. So, but Latin America, it depends. Maybe Central America, maybe you'd hear it in Costa Rica too. It just depends, Other people say nos vemos, ciao. Ciao is very common all over the place. Ciao. So
Right.
it depends. But the que le vaya bien I caught in Nicaragua was the first time I'd heard that.
All right.
Go well. Let everything go well for you. Go well. Que le vaya bien.
All right. Well, Elaine, thank you again. So is it hasta próxima?
Hasta la próxima.
Hasta la próxima.
Hasta la próxima, Xavier.
Hasta la próxima, Elaine.
Gracias. This was very enjoyable. Thank you.
know. Show some love now. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss a video.